Hey, wait, what are you...
I believe it's obvious by now that we're living in the era of remakes, and the old franchises and games are gradually making a comeback one by one to be revived with updated mechanics and visuals to suit the modern audience. However, it seems like the only games that were blessed with this feature recently are the popular ones that are already recognized by the majority of players. Whether it's Resident Evil or Dead Space, these games have an insanely large fanbase in both the older generation and the current one. They can easily dominate the spotlight with any installment because people are aware of their quality and their incredible gameplay. But recently, I really started to feel that there aren't many competitors to the giants of AAA horror gaming. And if you think about it, you'll notice that Resident Evil has no peers these days. And we're not seeing many developers getting the bravery to make games to compete with it like before, or even create action survival experiences that people can consider an alternative. When I think back on the last 20 plus years, I remember many great horror games that I would really be insanely excited if they got a remake with next-gen standards. I'm even convinced that some of them can take a share of the market from Resident Evil, or at least diversify our gaming options. This is what inspired me today to make a list of several horror games that I'm genuinely confident can take the gaming world by storm if they get a chance in the modern era and benefit from the crazy improvement of visuals. So without further ado, let's start.
I don't think anyone really knows what happened for certain. Something big, that's for sure. Then the dust and the fumes killed everything. Well, almost.
What are you doing here, boy?
We don't much like uninvited guests.
I'm gonna beat your skull like a drum.
This title is the definition of a forgotten game, and I'm convinced that the only people who still remember it are 2 or 3 people living in the shadows, including me. However, even though it's not popular and didn't achieve any kind of commercial success, it's not hard to feel that this game is interesting, and looks like it has so much potential due to its unique story and concept. The name itself is enough to trigger some type of interest in your mind, because you'll wonder why it's called I Am Alive. Well, it's called that because it puts you in the shoes of a man who returns to his devastated hometown 1 year after a cataclysmic event that literally wiped out most of humanity and turned cities into rubble. This disaster is referred to as the event, and the only reason the protagonist came back here is his hope of finding his missing wife and daughter. You need to venture into the treacherous city, braving not only the harsh environment, but also the dangers posed by other survivors, who are mostly douchebags with zero morals.
Hey, you! I can see you.
You lost your way?
I read you loud and clear. Oh God, no! Please don't!
On top of that, resources here are very limited to make your survival journey more realistic, which means that you need to search for food, water, and medicine while evading or fighting the people who might try to steal them from you.
Obviously, our friend here has... Someone shoot back!
Watch out, boys!
No help here, guys.
Hey, guys, he's pointing his gun at me.
Hey, back up!
Hey, don't shoot us!
This game also have one of the coolest mechanics that I really don't know why developers don't include in every survival game these days. This mechanic is that you can literally use your empty gun to threaten enemies and make them surrender because they think your gun is loaded.
Step back!
All right.
No problem. No, no! Back off!
You're the boss.
This is actually one of the most realistic mechanics I've ever seen in a survival game, because any human being in the real world would do the same thing to save their lives in similar situations. The fact that modern games ignore this feature really baffles me. Furthermore, the game also has an exciting way of exploring, where you navigate the crumbling cityscape using your parkour skills and scale towering remnants of buildings. But keep in mind, your journey here is not just about physical survival, it's also about confronting the emotional turmoil of a world lost and the uncertainty of your loved one's fate, a theme similar to the one in the Silent Hill franchise. And by the way, just as there are douchebags and criminals around you that pose a threat to your life, you can also encounter good people that might help in your journey. And this really makes the relationships here much deeper.
You can come out now. I won't hurt you.
You promise?
Yeah, I promise. Come on out. I have something to show you. What's your name, sweetie?
I'm May.
I have a daughter almost the same age as you. Here, you can take it.
Now that I have explained to you the general story and mechanics, the real question is, does this game deserve a remake? To be honest, I don't think any gamer with common sense would say no. I'm aware that this game was ignored, because the execution of the ideas was not close to what it should be, and there are many problems with the gameplay, but I'm still convinced that the concept of this game has a lot of potential. The vision and the core elements are there, but it simply needs a good development team that can turn them into a reality on the screen. Even though this game was made by Ubisoft more than 10 years ago, we all know that it didn't really receive any real attention from the company, and they simply assigned a small division to make it with a very limited budget. If this game comes back today with modern visuals and spirit, and gets a reasonable budget like Resident Evil does, I'm sure it will catch everyone's attention. Another reason that made me love this game is the fact that the idea of survival here is not fantastical like in most titles. There are no monsters or zombies here. You simply need to survive other humans who also became violent due to their desperation for essential needs like food and medicine. This is something that you can actually encounter in real life in cases of catastrophe. Anyway, tell me in the comments what you think about a remake of this game and whether you think it deserves a chance or not.
We have no time. The boat's coming. If the captain sees gunfire, he'll turn back for sure.
Okay, I'll search over here. You search over there. Whatever happens, we meet at the docks at the end of the pier. You take the pistol. It's dangerous out there.
Right. Meet at the docks.
We have to reach the other end of the track.
Do you want to go down there?
Yes, we have to. Don't worry.
Help! A woman got stabbed! Tasukete! Hito ga shinda! Hello? Hello? Damn it! Where are the cops when you need them?
If you're familiar with the 2000s era of gaming, then you probably know that the closest game to Resident Evil is definitely Siren. And in case you guys don't know why this franchise is very special and has a lot of interesting qualities, the reason is simply because it was designed by none other than Keiichiro Toyama. This man is basically the mastermind behind the first Silent Hill game, which turned into a huge success. However, he left the Silent Hill team after the first game to focus on a project that he was very passionate about, which is the Siren series. There are multiple Siren games that deserve to be brought back to life in this generation, but for me, I believe Blood Curse is the peak of this franchise. This game is complex and fragmented, unfolding through the perspectives of multiple characters who are imprisoned in the cursed Japanese village of Hanuda. It was a thriving village, but it went into absolute oblivion due to the disturbing rituals that took place inside it and the cults that infested its population.
They should have killed her.
No. Oh my god. They didn't actually kill her, did they? I can't believe this.
Quiet. Okay.
No, they're gonna kill her too.
Shit. We gotta do something.
Oh my god. She's getting away.
To investigate the haunting reputation of the place, a TV crew from the United States decided to go to the village and see what was happening. But this was a very big mistake. It turns out that the town is suffering from an ancient curse that turned the people there into monstrous creatures called Shibito and trapped their souls in a time loop. What makes this installment different is that the Link Navigator system from previous games has been replaced with a more straightforward chronological progression across 12 episodes. These episodes feature multiple playable characters whose stories intertwine, but there are no side missions, which is a good or bad thing depending on your gaming standards. Beside that, sight jacking here is more convenient, and you can see through the eyes of others automatically in a split-screen format, allowing for smoother gameplay. The ability to see what other people are seeing is really a cool feature that made the Siren franchise stand out and feel very different compared to its peers. But that's not all. The camera in this installment is also fixed in an over-the-shoulder view for a more action-focused feel, unlike the previous Siren games. When it comes to survival elements, you need to be careful with your movement everywhere. Making noise can draw the attention of Shibito enemies, and they can catch you in a heartbeat. You can brace doors for protection, and you can even move while aiming. But the cool part is that some weapons have special finishing moves for quick enemy takedowns. This is why I seriously consider this game the closest thing to Resident Evil, and even better in certain aspects in its era 16 years ago, in 2008. In fact, the enemies here are even scarier than any Resident Evil game at that time because the Shibito seem like insane, disturbing creatures and not typical zombies.
What the hell is going on? What's that?
They are also very intelligent, and they know what is happening around them. In my opinion, the revival of this series is one of the best things that can happen to the survival horror community, especially for people who love good action in the gameplay. It can create an amazing competition with Resident Evil and also give us more options to experience similar elements but in a different story and vibe. To this day, I still don't know why this franchise disappeared or why it never made a comeback after the PlayStation 3 era. Many modern gamers are completely unaware of how cool this game was, and this is why a remake with modern visuals and mechanics would definitely be something to be excited for. Tell me in the comments what you think about it, and whether you have played this game before or not.
Little girl. It's horrible.
Get away from her.
What was that?
Are you all right?
What's going on? I'm not getting anything here. Marcus!
Just like I talked earlier about how the Siren series was the closest thing possible to Resident Evil, I genuinely believe that Cold Fear was the project that could have been the next big deal in the survival horror genre, but sadly, it never had the chance. This game came out in 2005, and it was published by Ubisoft as a good alternative for players who love the Resident Evil style. And to be honest, from a quality point of view, They really succeeded in making one of the best games possible that any Resident Evil fan would love to play. The story here centers around Tom Hansen, a member of the US Coast Guard who comes to the aid of a Russian whaler in the Bering Strait, but ends up finding a mysterious parasite that has turned the crew into zombie-like creatures.
Holy!
However, the plot gets even more interesting when he discovers the involvement of both the Russian mafia and the CIA, which pushes him to embark on a mission to ensure the parasites don't reach land. If you replace Tom Hansen with Leon S. Kennedy, you'll feel that this is a Resident Evil installment, but make no mistake, Cold Fear has its own unique identity, and it's not a copy. The gameplay is rich as you navigate through the ship's dark and dangerous environments, solving puzzles, fighting off enemies, and managing your resources. But that's not all. The game also features a mix of fixed camera angles and over-the-shoulder aiming, allowing you to choose your preferred playstyle. Overall, it's really a cool game that surprised the 2005 gamers, because no one saw it coming. But the sad thing is that 2005 was the first and last year this game would ever make an appearance. Despite the good quality, the game generally didn't achieve a number of sales that could ensure its survival and turn it into a series, even though Ubisoft was hoping for a different result. People at that time were simply focusing on Resident Evil 4 to the extent that any other game in the genre felt way inferior. But as someone who wants our gaming choices to be different, I'm positive a remake of this game would be insane. There's no need to change anything in the story, because to me it felt very intriguing, and the characters are also likable. I don't know your opinion about this one, but I believe a large chunk of gamers who are familiar with this game might agree with me because they know it has potential.
This guy goes around and kills the killers in the same way that they're killing the innocent. He's like an Uber killer, a serial killer X, a perp not on your original case list.
So, this serial killer X kills serial killers. He takes them down using their own methods.
All the games I mentioned in the video so far are among my favorite titles that I want to be brought back to life. But if I had to choose one game that I want to be remade, then Condemned Criminal Origins is seriously a top answer for me. When I remember that it's 19 years old, I realize even more how it was ahead of its time as a first-person horror game with both action and psychological elements. The protagonist here is FBI agent Ethan Thomas, who is assigned to investigate a series of brutal murders in the city of Metro, which is notorious for being unsafe. However, as Thomas delves deeper into the case, he starts to notice a connection between the killings and a recent rise in violent crime amongst the city's homeless population. This is basically one of the main elements that made me love this game. It really takes the investigation part seriously and wants you to deal with a sophisticated case that can trigger your curiosity. And the best part is that the protagonist is very intelligent too. He is known for his unusual methods and seemingly psychic ability to understand the minds of criminals, which convinced him that something more sinister was at play and that there's a serial killer behind the murders. But just when I thought the plot couldn't get any better, guess what? It literally gets way better when Thomas suddenly finds himself accused of murdering 2 police officers because his service weapon was used in the crime. This is when I lost my mind completely and said, wait a second, this game is really much deeper than I thought. The prominent detective who was assigned to solve a crime is now a fugitive on the run, and he must not only clear his name, but also uncover the truth behind the conspiracy that has ensnared him. It's like we're playing in a drama series mixed with a true crime documentary about serial killers. Eventually, the investigation leads him through the dark and underbelly of Metro, where he encounters a variety of criminals, from deranged vagrants to ruthless gang members. He must use his combat skills and forensic tools to gather evidence, solve puzzles, and fight for his survival all at the same time. But the strange part is that he also experiences disturbing visions and hallucinations, hinting at a deeper connection to the events unfolding around him. And by the way, he also possesses a latent psychic ability that allows him to see glimpses into the minds of the killers he pursues, which is another twist in the gameplay that I didn't expect. Anyway, I'm not going to talk anymore about the story, because the remaining parts include crucial discoveries that can spoil the conclusion of the game for anyone who wants to play it. But to summarize it, it basically combines themes of violence, corruption, and the dark side of humanity. It is a suspenseful and often disturbing journey that will keep you wondering how it will end from start to finish. Trust me, I can easily imagine a remake of this game being one of the biggest deals in the modern horror gaming community. And if you focus a little bit on the gameplay and theme, you'll realize that this game is literally the sister of another terrifying first-person horror franchise from the 2000s. Yes, my dear viewers, you guessed it. This game is the unofficial twin of the Fear series. Both games were basically made at the same time by the same developer, which is Monolith Productions. Condemned was made for Sega, and Fear was made for Warner Brothers, but both titles pretty much had the same vibes and atmosphere. However, the sad thing is that both of them also disappeared from the gaming world, despite having successful sequels. Personally, I see Condemned as a perfect game to be remade because it pretty much fits the needs of most modern horror gamers. It's a first-person game with incredible action mechanics, but also deep psychological elements and an interesting story where exploration and investigation are key. I would be satisfied with a remake, but I would be even happier if they announced a third installment of the game after its disappearance in 2008. I don't know about you guys, but if I ever hear about its return, it would definitely be on my top wish list. But if we're being honest, that's a little bit of a far-fetched dream, because the developers already went in a different direction to please their mother company, Warner Brothers. In case you don't know, the same developers are also behind one of my favorite games ever, but not in the horror genre. The title I'm talking about is Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, and that game was really insane, to be honest. Anyway, tell me in the comments what you think about Condemned, and whether you share the same feelings with me about it or not.
We heard an explosion.
Yeah, I'm fine. Just a fuse box shorted. I seem to be trapped over here, and I believe the suspect has my gun.
What? How the hell did that happen?
Here, take this fire axe and chop your way out.
Okay, now that I've finished the main list, it's time to talk about some honorable mentions, which are equally important to me. The first is Cry of Fear, And believe me when I say that a remake of this game, with modern visuals and mechanics, is basically the closest thing we can get to a modern Silent Hill game. Cry of Fear is a psychological masterpiece because it delves into real mental disorders that affect someone's mind, and the plot twist in the end is basically the icing on the cake. Another game that really needs to be brought back to life is The Suffering. This is a weird one because it really has a very big fan base, even though the game feels like ancient history. The Suffering is also one of the few games that masterfully combine good action with powerful psychological elements due to the protagonist's tragic story. He is a man facing the death penalty for murdering his family, even though he doesn't remember committing such a crime. Throughout the game, he sees weird apparitions and distressing scenes of his dead wife and children, which make him question if he's really an evil man or not. I would really love for this game to come back, but it's extremely hard because the studio that made it doesn't exist anymore, and they closed their doors many years ago. It's sad because I feel that the 2000s era had many developers who used to dare to create things that could be a great alternative to Resident Evil. Another franchise that, seriously, no one knows why it vanished or why it's not coming back is none other than Dino Crisis. This is pretty much the best dinosaur horror game ever created, according to a large number of gamers who bought millions of copies of the game. The general plot here typically focuses on recurring outbreaks of dinosaurs in closed environments, such as a research facility on an island, but it really felt ahead of its time. And I believe a modern version is really needed more than ever, because there's a serious lack of dinosaur games these days. The last game I want to mention is Kwon, and the reason is because this one pretty much passed under the radar of gamers even during its release. It was made by the big boys at From Software, the same people behind iconic games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, but for some reason, this horror game didn't become a hit in 2004 when it launched. The game is set in Japan's Middle Ages and follows the story of 3 protagonists as they investigate a series of mysterious occurrences and monstrosities plaguing the Fujiwara mansion in Kyoto. The gameplay is a mix of exploration and combat, but it's really a scary experience, especially because the Japanese traditional vibes are strong. This explains why it became a success in Japan, while it was pretty much a hidden gem for the rest of us. Anyway, this is it for today, guys. Give this video a like if you loved it, and let me know about the game you want remade in the comments below. I'm seriously interested in knowing your choices and where you stand when it comes to the classics.